Okay, today's video is about this Radio Shack watt meter here. Kind of older style meter now. They're not made anymore, but you see a lot of them that come up for sale on eBay and stuff like that. So that's where this one was purchased some time ago. And they work pretty good. I try to recommend these to people, customers. They send me messages and whatnot, asking me what kind of watt meter do you recommend. And I ask them, well, do you want super high quality or something that's just going to, be okay? And more times than not, it's just something that's going to be okay. So this is kind of what I recommend for people. You guys can see here, it says it'll do up to 2,000 watts, but I mean, I wouldn't run 2,000 watts through this. I wouldn't even run 1,000 watts through it. Personally, I wouldn't run anything really through it except maybe an HF transceiver or, something normal radio, but that's just out of personal preference. I'm not a big power hungry kind of operator, so but it says you can do up to 2,000, so maybe you can. I'm not really sure, but you got a 20 watt scale, you got a 200 watt scale, and you got a 2,000. You have average and you have peak envelope power. The one drawback I'll say about this meter, peak envelope power, yeah, it's not going to be not going to do much for you there, because for one, you don't have a powered circuit. You do have to have that to have a real peak reading watt meter. So like this meter, your Dosys, your static meters, Workman, Paradynamic, I really don't know what else is out there, but anything that does not have a powered circuit will not read accurate peak watts. It's just the way it is. So those meters can look really fancy, have a lot of features, like the Dosys have like a modulation meter. Some of them have frequency counters on them. Some of them have headphone jacks and all kinds of fancy stuff to really make them look good, and they do look really good. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you're kind of wasting your money because you don't have a powered peak circuit like a Bird 43P. If you have the peak kit in it, the actual Bird peak kit is the best. There's other optional ones out there, but unless you calibrate them properly, you're probably not going to get a very accurate reading, because well, they can be over calibrated to show more peak watts simply. So can the kit in this meter, which was purchased brand new. You could go in and you could adjust it up to make it show more peak watts. I have no reason to do that, because there's just no reason to. A radio is only going to do what the radio is going to do cleanly, and I have the test equipment here to show that. There's no reason to exaggerate power output of a radio, whether it's an HF transceiver, a CB radio, a 10 meter radio, whatever it may be. So the peak reading circuit in this is basically what it is. I believe it would be like a capacitor or something that charges up. I'm not really sure exactly how it would be designed, but it's not the right way to do it. So, and let's just demonstrate it really quick here. We have an HF transceiver here, ICOM 7300. We're an upper sideband on 10 meter. We're going into a dummy load, so we have our power at 100%. We have a speech processor on, and our mic gain's up at 100%. So I can just show you guys really quick here on the radio. We may be over, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we're doing okay. We're right at the cusp of overdriving the ALC, but it's not going to be terrible or anything. So, but let's look at this Radio Shack meter here as we're transmitting. Now again, this should do about 100 watts. It's about a 100 watt transceiver. And we're just looking at the 200 watt scale, so that 1,000 would actually be 100, and that 500 would be 50. So, with normal talking, we're, I don't know, 75, 80 watts or so, almost 100 on this thing. It's hello. If we do that, we get, well, to be honest, the 100 would be more, there's that little slash mark. So, hello. Yeah, we're still about 80 watts on this. So you guys can see it's not reading a true peak reading. It's somewhat, but it's not true. So let's go over here to the Bird 43. which we don't have in peak right now. This would just be what it would show, kind of an average, which means nothing to me. So I need to turn the peak kit on here. So there's our peak kit on. We have a 100-watt element, so we're looking at the bottom, and we'll just start talking here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's a more true reading. So 100 watts, basically right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check, check. So again, does everyone need to run out and buy one of these? No. I mean, if you want a true, accurate meter, then yes. And, you know, I am running through some test equipment and whatnot. It's basically coming out of this transceiver. It's going right into this meter, and then it's coming out and going in through the sampler into the watt meter, going out, going into a dummy load. So, but our end result here is that we're doing much more accurate power reading on this Bird 43P. So this was purchased brand new. And it still has fresh batteries in it. That's one bad thing about these, is don't leave the red light on, because you'll wake up the next day or next time you come in your workshop. The batteries will be dead, and they're not fun to change. You have to take the thing all apart and stuff. It's kind of a pain. So, is this a bad meter? No, it's not a bad meter. It's just the way it's designed. It's not going to read true peaks. So, and let's show this HF transceiver on FM. So we'll come over here, we'll put this in FM, and we'll do 100 watts out on FM here. So we'll look over here. So we're doing about 125 according to this meter. So if we come over here to the Bird 43, peak kit is off. We are over 100, but if I put a 250 in there, it's about 105. So it's really not that big of a difference. It's not 125 like this guy's showing. And again, some guys will say, well, why don't you just calibrate this thing to your bird? And yeah, it's easier said than done, because I mean, you could do it, you could attempt to do it, and you very well may be able to, but the problem is you're not going to fix the peak circuit. It's never going to read peak properly. So yeah, you could go in and you could try to adjust the carrier, because we're still in peak envelope power. If I put this in average, it really doesn't change anything. You could try to adjust that more to that 100. Then if we go to the 2000 watt scale, it's reading more accurately there, maybe just a touch over 100, and I'm assuming that there's probably some kind of adjustment for each power range on this meter. Now, would I recommend the average person go in and do it? Probably not either, because I mean, if you don't know what you're turning, you're going to mess something up with the standing wave ratio, which we can calibrate that really quick. It reads pretty good. So, I mean, I've seen these kind of priced all over the place, usually under $40 on eBay. It's a good meter for that, and I would recommend this meter over a Dosy or anything else out there. But if you're really looking for real, true, accurate peak reading output on a meter, then this probably wouldn't be the one for you. So just keep that in mind. Anything that, like I say, doesn't have either a battery or a power pack that plugs into it is not going to read like a true peak wattage. So let me show you guys, just for instance, something else I have here. Just one second. We'll move to the radio bench. Okay, I don't get a lot of time over here anymore, but this meter I would recommend for a less expensive watt meter, SWR meter, for amateur radio or for CB radio. You guys can see it's good from 1.8 to 60 megahertz. So as long as you were within HF or 6 meter, you'd be fine with this meter. If you wanted VHF or UHF, you'd have to find something else. But this has a peak and average and high and low. I believe it's only good for 300 watts. Yeah, 300 watts, and then on low would be 30 watts. So of course you'd have to keep that in mind. If you were running something higher powered, this wouldn't be the meter for you either. But for most guys, running a couple 100 watts or just a regular radio, this would be fine. I don't have it powered on right now or anything. Actually, there's a circuit interrupter under my desk here. I just haven't reached down to turn it on, but it has a very nice bright light in it, and has a peak and average. This is a powered peak reading meter. I don't know if I can flip this around or not. Yeah, I think so. You guys can see it has a jack on the back that goes to a wall wart that plugs into that power strip. It's just not turned on right now. And this will read a more accurate peak output than anything else really out there. And I think there's some other ones out there. There's one by Palstar that has a powered circuit. Usually some of your better amateur radio stuff, some of them do have powered peak circuits in them, and those are the ones I would recommend. The nice thing about this meter, which I've actually never done, and I think I actually made a video on this meter on my channel too, if did it a long time ago. If you take all these screws out right here by the input and output, this will actually come out, and you could put that somewhere else, and I believe it has an extension for the line section, which would be your input and output. You could mount that somewhere else, and then you could keep the body of this meter somewhere else too. I really don't know why you'd want to do it, because more times than none you're going to be using this in a home base scenario, but I guess if you didn't have enough coaxial cable to reach, you know, the jumper and the antenna or whatever you were trying to do, that would be a way to get around that. But it does come out, and you know, the meter will still work independently with that line section somewhere else. Like, I don't know how long the cord is or anything, because I've never actually done it. So, but that's another feature of it. And I know like a lot of people have a bad feeling about MFJ, but basically a Meritron MFJ. But I've had nothing but good luck with this meter. I will say too that the peak circuit is very happy, so it will it reads pretty accurate. But what I mean is, as soon as you key up a radio, it will start jumping around. You know, it's very sensitive to that, and it has kind of a slow release. Like if you unkey your radio, quit talking, it will slowly drop back. The way around that is just simply, if you're reading peak all the time, just go like that, and then the meter will just simply fall. But I saw some of the reviews on this meter on eham.net, and if anybody's interested, go to eham.net and look up this model. You'll see all kinds of reviews on it. Most are really good. There's a few that are critical, and you know, certain things make people unhappy, and usually they're the ones that complain about stuff. So, you know, they're gonna voice their opinion there, just like I guess they should. And again, with anything, maybe they got a bad meter, which a Meritron, MFJ, Cushcraft, whatever flavor of MFJ, they will replace it or fix it under their warranty. They have a good warranty, so you really can't, you're not really out your money, you're more just out your time if you have to send something back, which I have had to do with certain items from them in the past, so it can be rather annoying. But you know, this actually worked really good out of the box. I have had no trouble with it whatsoever. So just wanted to show that this is another option. I think these are at least under, I'm not honestly sure anymore. I think it's about 200, some in the 200 price range, somewhere in the mid 200s, maybe less, maybe closer to 3. I'm not really sure anymore, but they do work pretty good. The cross needle is nice because you get to read your standing wave ratio, and it will show reflected power all at the same time. So it gives you kind of a good idea of what's going on with your whole setup while you're using it. So that is a nice feature, and that's about it for this one. So let me run back over to the workbench here. Okay, so we're able to find it. This is just like the MFJ website. A lot of times you can get their products cheaper through a dealer, basically a different company. But I guess I was wrong. I need to learn how my own equipment uses. This is a 300 on low and a 3000 on high is basically what it is. So, and it reads true peak power because it has that, and it also has that remote sensor. You can use that 12-volt adapter or a 9-volt battery. So it takes one 9-volt battery that'll plug in there too. So You can power it either way, which would be a nice feature on this more expensive Bird 43 if they gave you the option to run a power pack instead of 9-volt batteries. That would be nice, because then if you forget to leave the thing on, oh wow, you're kind of running up your electric bill. But again, at least you don't ever have to worry about changing batteries out. And that's one thing I hate doing on these, is changing the batteries out. It's just kind of tedious, and usually happens at the worst time when you're in the middle of working on something or you're doing something. So the last thing you want to do is have to change the batteries out. And more times than not, it's because I've forgotten to shut the switch off. So operator error. But anyways, here's that meter. Let me find one more just to give you guys an example. Okay, here's that Palstar I mentioned earlier in the video. This is kind of the same way. This is a 300 watt and 2000 watt. This would be like a real peak reading watt meter. Let me see if I can switch to the other picture that has the back of it. There we go. So we can see we have a power input to power that peak circuit. And this actually has a ground, so that's a good thing. So, and this is again on the manufacturer's website, which I guess you could buy it from them too, but I would assume that you could find it cheaper probably from a dealer. It's usually how it works for some reason I found in the business. So, but this would probably be a better, I mean, honestly, I would recommend this meter over that Ameritron, just basically due to the name, but I really don't know if it's better or not. You'd have to look reviews up on like eham.net, because I have heard things about Palstar that they may have, quality control may be lacking. But again, that's with a lot of things these days with electronics. You know, things aren't made as good as they used to be. But this would definitely be another good choice for a less expensive real peak reading watt meter. And of course, it's not as cool looking and everything as Dosy, and I'll just show one of those really quick. Okay, man, it was a hard time finding a picture that I could actually see bring up on the screen. But here's your Dosy. I mean, they look really cool. I used to have one of these back in my younger days. I thought it was the best thing out there at the time because I just really didn't know. And I mean, all meters will read distortion and harmonics out of a radio as more power, but these are notorious for that. So the peak setting really isn't anything great, but it will read a lot of distortion and harmonics if you have your radio clipped or mod limiter removed or cranked wide open, or the 54 megahertz trap circuit cranked way up. It's going to read all that as extra power, so just keep that in mind. And like, this antenna selector switch isn't the best either. It's a cool feature, and I really think if they put some more quality into these meters, they would be probably the best meter out there for like CB radio. But unfortunately, they really don't. You know, they'd have to charge a lot more money. I don't know if people would be willing to pay. I think I would if you had the performance of the watt meter, like something like this, the accuracy and the real peak performance. If you put that in this with all the other features, which really the modulation meter on this is kind of what it is. It's not going to be very accurate because we all know the only way to see real modulations on an oscilloscope. So, but again, I mean, it's something that's a sell feature. They have a nice light. I think this is an older model. This one has the headphone jack where you can listen to yourself, I guess, over the air. The one I had didn't. Mine was a lot older than this one, but I like how they look, but it's a downside of the performance isn't good on them. And these are like in the, I think, 200 plus range at least. So anybody that's considering getting something like this, I would much rather see you get like the Palstar or that Ameritron, or save yourself a lot of money if you just want to keep it basic and get something like this used. I mean, an extra 25 watts is what this showed on FM. Really not a big deal. Maybe 20 watts less peak envelope power on sideband, still not a big deal. I guess let's check. We didn't check the low power setting, so I guess let's just check that really quick. So we'll check that really quick here. Get our transmitter set up here to do less power. Okay, what do we have? So we have about 15 watts right now. We're on FM, still in 10 meter, still on the dummy load. So we have about 15 watts here. Actually a little more because we're looking at the L. So let's turn it back to about 15 if we can. There we go. So when you're on the low power setting, you have to look at the L, which would be the bottom scale. So the little slash marks are the ones on the bottom. So about 15. So to be comparable, we have a 25 watt element in here. And we're about, I think the slash mark in the middle would be 12.5. So we're probably 13 something. I mean, it's real close. So it's not that big of a deal. If I had a different radio hooked up, we'd look at like peak envelope power on, well, I guess we can just simply turn the HF transceiver on SSB and we'll see what we have here if we turn the peak on the bird first. That way we get kind of an idea. Hello, check 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Check. So we're about 15 watts or so, 15 watts. So that'll be a good way to test it. So, okay, let's see here. So we need to turn this on peak envelope power. Okay, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, see, this is like I say where you're lacking. You're lacking because you're not getting a real true peak reading. We're only showing about, I don't know, 5 to 7 watts at most. Not even really that, maybe more like 5 at times. So it's not going to really give you a good, accurate reading. But again, I don't know the history of this meter. Maybe somebody already was in there toying around with the adjustments. I don't know. What I do know is it just doesn't really compare up to what this does, and I wouldn't expect it to anyways in the grand scheme of things, just because price difference. But yeah, could I probably go in and try to adjust things? Yeah, I could. I'd have to search Google and try to find some kind of idea of what adjustments do what on this thing, because again, without it, unless it's marked on the circuit board here, which I highly doubt it is, or if it's referenced in the manual, which this did come with the documentation, I really don't know. Is it worth me spending the time to do that? Not really, because again, 10 watts, really, it's not really that big of a difference. And I would say that inaccuracy is due to it not being a true powered peak circuit. So I would say it's more than that than it is somebody went in and toyed around with this thing, because for the most part, for what these cost new, and I think they were maybe new, maybe in the $50 range. That's just guessing, but 50 to 75 maybe even. I know Radio Shack usually, they like to charge an arm and a leg for their stuff because they said it was a better quality than a lot of other companies. But again, I would say 50 to 75. Even if it was 100, I'd say that was a stretch, but I really don't know, because I did buy one of these new years ago before our local Radio Shack went out of business, and I really just don't remember what I paid for it. I just remember I called them up because I saw it on their website that they had one, and it's not this one. I sold that one later. But the guy that answered the phone's like, yeah, I'll go check in the back, and he says, yeah, we have it. And when I went to buy it, I go to the store and pick it up. He's like, well, what is it? He didn't really know what it was for, and he was a younger guy, and it was really hard for me to try to explain the whole radio concept to him. He said, well, it took me a minute to find it because I was on hold for a good 5 to 10 minutes. It was buried behind a bunch of other boxes with about an inch of dust all over it, so it had been sitting there for a long time. But I wish I would have held on to that one because I knew that it was new, and I really don't know the history of this, but I would just assume that most people really aren't going in their meter and really trying to do much to them, because I mean, you're not really going to gain anything. You're just, at that point, you're just kind of lying to yourself if you over adjust it. So I don't see the purpose of that. But I guess on the business side of it, if someone wants to make it seem like they're really cranking up these radios to sell more radios. Well, maybe that some people buy into that, but I think the whole radio hobby is kind of coming around to that, you know, these radios are only designed to do so much, and then anything more than that, you're either exaggerating your meter or you're just doing something to the radio that probably isn't the right thing to do. So, but again, that's just my 2 cents. And hopefully, you know, the guys that are experienced probably aren't really watching this far into the video anyways. They probably stopped watching 10 minutes ago or maybe even longer. But for the newer CB radio operators, maybe even newer amateur radio operators, this is just kind of a, I guess, an informational video of stuff I've learned throughout the years in the hobby, and kind of what to stay away from as far as watt meters, and what some that are good, that are a little less money, that aren't as well known, especially like the Palstar and that Ameritron, really aren't known that much for like CB radio. So I just try to bring that kind of stuff to you guys' attention, that, you know, there are some meters out there that are pretty good meters that will read good peak reading, and they're not like gonna break the bank like something like this will. Because honestly, guys, I mean, to buy one of these, great. If you can buy one of these and justify it, go ahead and buy it, because they really are great meters. But for, like I say, for most people, it's not really economical to have something like this, because again, if you're testing with various other frequencies and different levels of power output, then you have to start accumulating these things, which they add up fast too. And that's kind of why I chose the coaxial dynamic brand, because they're just a little less money than the actual bird elements. But, and in my finding, they work just as good. So I'm going to get the same result for less money. It's just better that way. So, and honestly, I wanted the coaxial dynamic meter, but they were just out of stock. They're having trouble getting them. So I just went with this. I have another Bird 43 that's a backup. I may have already mentioned that. So it's in a little less good condition as far as the casing and stuff, but it's just good to have around for, you know, testing and stuff like that. If I want to change something in my vehicle or something like that, it's just nice to have. It's kind of one of those things, when you get these, you don't really want to part with them. So, but I guess I made this video a lot longer than I wanted to, but again, for a general hobbyist, I think this is a perfectly fine meter, and you can get these all the time, usually on eBay. If you search this model number 21534, you can find them on eBay all the time. So if anyone's interested in that Palstar or a Ameritron, and this video helped you out, you end up getting one and you like it, well, let me know, because I'd be curious to hear about that, and how your results are on those. I like I said before, I think the Palstar would probably be the better buy. You guys would just have to check the reviews, and I can show you guys really quick here. I'll show you guys really quick, and then I'm going to end the video. This eham.net, you don't have to be a ham to go here either. You don't have to have an amateur radio license or anything like that. You just simply type this eham.net into your browser, and then you come down here, where is it? Reviews, product reviews, click product reviews, and then you can select all these different options. So we want to look for SWR, watt meters, and dummy loads. Okay, well, they have all different kinds. You can actually sort this by, you know, average rating, last review, number of reviews. We want to do number of reviews. And we want to see, okay, so yeah, that's another one I didn't mention, the LP100A. Again, that's going to be your high-end meter, kind of like this, but it's going to be digital. And I think there's enough digital stuff in the world already. That's why I didn't choose to go with something like that. But we can see 183 reviews, average review 5. So everybody's happy with it. Bird 43. Not as many reviews. It's only a 4.4. So there's got to be something that people don't like about Bird 43. I would assume it's the cost of the elements. Again, this is another meter that's kind of popular here, this Daiwa. Not as great a review. Again, that's not a powered peak circuit. Here's a Palstar, but I think that's the dummy load one. Here's that Palstar one that I showed you guys right here. So total reviews 35. It's a 4.3, and it's kind of fun to read these reviews and see what people say about them. Let's try to find that Ameritron one really quick. I'm actually going to go by product name. Puts it in alphabetical order. Here we go, right here. So that's the one that I own. 32 reviews, it's a 4.6. So it seems like people like that one better. So again, it has all kinds of reviews. You can take the time to read on this stuff, because some of it's kind of entertaining to find out what other people, their experience with this equipment. You don't see this kind of stuff on like CB stuff. I wish there was like more like CB stuff where you could get like user reviews. A lot of the CB community, it's all about word of mouth, and I guess guys that take the time to make YouTube videos and stuff like that, we kind of learn a little bit from that. But a lot of times with the CB equipment, what you see is a guy puts the radio in front of you, and I'm kind of I've done this before too to you guys, but you put a radio in front of you on the bench, you start talking on it, you show it on the test equipment, you show it on a watt meter, and that's really it. You don't really say a whole lot more about it. I try to say whether I like something or not, give my opinion, but a lot of times that's all you see. And a lot of times you don't hear really about stuff unless there's bad things to say about it either. So it's kind of nice with eham.net that you see a lot of good stuff with it too. And they have equipment on there that's not even made anymore, so it'll say if it's in production or out of production. So here's the Bird 43P right here, and it's only got 7 reviews. Last time it was reviewed was back in 2013. 525, 4.7 out of 5. So you get a lot of stuff on here. Antennas, there's a few CB items on here like Antron 99, which can be used as an amateur antenna also. So I like eham.net. I've learned a lot from other people's experiences and what to stay away from, what things are possibly worth trying. So all right, you guys have a good evening. Hope guys that maybe didn't know a few things about these meters, maybe you learned something. Maybe you hated the video. If you hated the video, let me know, and I'll try to do better next time. Give it a thumbs down. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you just ran across my channel for the first time and you kind of enjoyed listening to me ramble on about watt meters and power output and all this other stuff, then think about subscribing, and we'll try to keep the radio hobby a little entertaining, more entertaining as we go. There's really not a lot going on right now with radio stuff. We're waiting on, I guess, the FCC to start approving like Cobra, and President, I'm assuming, are going to be the first ones to come out with like AM, FM, CB radios to be sold in America. So we're kind of waiting on that still. I would assume that they're going to have some AM, FM single sideband CBs also, but I can't really say for sure because I haven't heard anything from President. I've never heard anything from Cobra, but President is pretty good with their dealers. They try to let us know stuff when they find out information. So, but I haven't heard anything yet, so I'll be curious to see what happens later with that. What I do know is there's still a big shortage on radios as far as like Galaxy and Ranger, anything made by Ranger. There's a big shortage on parts, so they're not making a lot of models anymore. I heard that the Galaxy DX99 V2 was actually discontinued, so you guys probably won't be seeing that one anymore. DX949 I think was also been discontinued. DX979 I think also. They just can't build these radios because they simply don't have parts for them. So I don't know if they're actually, some of them are discontinued or they just can't make them or whatever the issue is. But right now you're not going to find them, and if you do find them, you're probably going to pay a lot more than what they're actually worth. So just keep that in mind also. But with that, everybody have a good one. 7-3. We'll catch you on the next one.